What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla x Kong The New Empire news roundup. That's right, in this video we will be continuing our chronological journey through the development of Godzilla x Kong The New Empire by covering events that happened in January 2023. If you're new to the series or you don't know what's going on here, let me explain really quickly. Over the past year or so, we've been covering the chronological development of Godzilla x Kong The New Empire, and in this video we will be picking up with events that happened in January 2023. These are events either directly relating to the development of the movie or indirectly relating to it in various ways. Y'all caught up? Alright, good, let's jump into it. Starting out with some art, I wanted to show this one off from Jack LaSpooky. I've shown off some of their art before. This is a great one. This is a King of the Monsters tribute that was done in 2019 for Godzilla King of the Monsters. I really love how it captures some of the most iconic visuals from that movie, and I truly do believe that Godzilla King of the Monsters is the MonsterVerse movie with the most iconic visuals most of the time. Like, every single visual in that movie just goes so hard. There's so many incredible pictures. My favorite one here is actually the Russells doing their little hug. I just think that's a really cool one that they added. Next up, we've got somebody whose name I'm gonna butcher. I believe this is Ms. Les's Queen of the Monsters art. I just think this one's so beautiful. Obviously capturing the beautiful iconography of Mothra coming out of the waterfall. Obviously love the color scheme. I love the whole thing going on here. I just think it's such a beautiful piece. And then coming to us from a friend of mine, this is Figure Mania Show's Intimidation Display, all authentic art from 2019. My favorite thing that Figure Mania Show does is it's typically all captured in camera with no real digital effects. And I believe what he's done here is he's taken a picture from the movie, a screenshot, and then cut out parts around it. So you can see, like, these are the authentic Monarch characters standing there looking at Godzilla. He's cut them out, I believe, like literally paper, and put it in front of the picture. And if that's what he's done, that's so freaking cool. I really love his art. I always love what he does, and I wanted to show that one off. Indirectly related to the MonsterVerse here, this comes to us from Warner Bros. I just felt the need to mention it because it's a new upcoming monster slash kaiju-ish movie coming out from Warner Bros. It's a monster movie, not a kaiju movie, but it's one of those proto-kaiju films, one of the ones that sort of kind of loosely inspired the kaiju genre in some ways. And that is that they are working on a remake of the classic 1950s sci-fi film Them, about the giant ants that go on the attack. I believe they're giant nuclear ants. That's a great film. It's one of the classic sci-fi films from that time period. Michael Giacchino, the composer, is actually going to be the director of this project, or at least he was announced as the director of it. He did make his directorial debut with Werewolf by Night with Marvel, and of course that did capture those same types of old school vintage horror vibes in black and white, and so I think he could do something pretty cool here. Toho Kingdom and O'Shea Jackson Jr. thanked everybody for their support on Monarch G-Team, their anime that they're working on. If you don't know, Monarch G-Team is an anime being worked on by O'Shea Jackson Jr. of Godzilla King of the Monsters alongside Toho Kingdom's Chris Jahangir. Both of them are trying to kickstart an anime inspired by the MonsterVerse, using concepts and characters from Godzilla King of the Monsters and going their own direction with them, and giving us Toho fans and Godzilla fans all of the kaiju action we've wanted, and fulfilling our dreams of having a proper Godzilla anime that goes full action and, as many would say, full anime. Hiya Toys did their annual report and reported that the MonsterVerse line is doing super well. They also said they're open to feedback for new Titan ideas. The introduction of their new exquisite basic action figure product line with high quality multi-point articulation figures based on the MonsterVerse did incredibly well. Rodan was set to come out in February, and then Monarch was set to come out, and those were highly anticipated figures, but Hiya revealed that their MonsterVerse figures are doing super well and that they plan to continue with Godzilla. As we know, they did in fact continue with Godzilla over the course of the next year, and many people consider Hiya to be the #1 Godzilla toy brand at the moment. It's right up there alongside SH Monster Arts and Super 7 as like the top Godzilla products at the moment, especially when it comes to articulated figures. There's a lot of really high quality non-articulated figures out there. Hiya Toys then teased their upcoming Ghidorah 2019. I know this was so anticipated for so many people. I didn't wind up getting this one. I think it was just a little too expensive for me, but it looks wonderful. At least from this teaser picture, it looks wonderful. I know many people consider it to be a fantastic alternative to the SH Monster Arts King Ghidorah. Many people consider this one to be far more accurate to the Ghidorah from the movie than the one SH Monster Arts did. Many people consider this to be the superior sculpt, although I don't know which one's the superior product. Spiral Studios, who's kind of the top of the line when it comes to non-articulated MonsterVerse Godzilla products, announced their new Spiral Studios Titans of the MonsterVerse series Tiamat statue. Now, of course, Tiamat is one of the main Titans introduced in Godzilla Dominion, the Godzilla vs. Kong prequel comic that picks up after Godzilla King of the Monsters and shows the King of the Monsters performing his King of the Monsterly duties. Tiamat's such a freaking cool kaiju. It's very Manda inspired. I really love her. I think she's so neat. Of the monsters in the comic books, that's one of the only ones that I felt like I could really wrap my head around and could see it in live action. Whereas then you got like Amalok, which I can't even begin to understand what I was looking at half the time. My favorite artist officially working on MonsterVerse products, Zid, finally got to work on Godzilla stuff. Zid is known for doing the incredible Kong comics from the MonsterVerse. Zid's art is truly incredible, but he's a Godzilla guy, so it's very nice to see him finally stepping into the Godzilla wheelhouse. This is a wonderful King of the Monsters tribute. This was artwork officially licensed for the MonsterVerse Omnibus collection. I believe this is kind of recapping the movie Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think it might be part of the short story they did for that comic book. I just thought this artwork was so incredible, especially because I just think his art is so superior to some of the other MonsterVerse comic artwork we get. Additional artwork Zid did for the Omnibus collection was this MonsterVerse history art featuring Godzilla and Kong fighting on the aircraft carrier. I love that Kong's just doing this flying punch through the air. That's so fun. He's standing in front of Skull Island. Of course, down there you've got Godzilla's King of the Monsters Hollow Earth Temple up above them. Then you've got a Mother Longlegs. I believe that might be the Queen Mother Longlegs. Camazotz, Muto Prime, looking fantastic. Finally getting a good look at Muto Prime. I really don't like the artwork that Muto Prime was originally drawn, and I think it's kind of hard to understand what she looks like. Tiamat and what might be Shinamura flying above, but that's just some really awesome artwork right there. And then Zid got to do this kind of Godzilla 2014 recap artwork showing a bunch of the iconic moments from Godzilla 2014. I believe again in another recap of Godzilla's MonsterVerse history, which I think was featured in their little short story that they did. But that's just wonderful stuff. That's awesome. A Titanus Doug plushie was offered as a reward for the MonsterVerse Omnibus collection. If you want more details on the MonsterVerse Omnibus, we did cover that in the last MonsterVerse news and updates, so you can go check that out. I'm not going to recover it here, but I did want to mention specifically the Titanus Doug plushie just because it was kind of one of the first official things they did to play into the Titanus Doug meme. It obviously was setting up for the future where Doug's going to make a reappearance in Godzilla X Kong the New Empire. Legendary then thanked all of the support they got on the Kickstarter for the MonsterVerse Omnibus project by revealing the first page of the new short story they're doing for that, Godzilla Fight or Flight. This, I believe, is told from the perspective of a soldier who has to defend Apex from Godzilla as Godzilla shows up to attack at the start of Godzilla vs. Kong, but this soldier has had a long history with Godzilla saving the day, and so he's kind of conflicted about having to combat Godzilla. KDM put out some estimates as to what Godzilla vs. Kong's actual gross was, given public physical media sales for Godzilla vs. Kong, which doesn't account for all purchases for Godzilla vs. Kong, obviously doesn't account for digital purchases or HBO Max subscriptions or anything like that, but given the physical media sales that are public and then adding in the box office for Godzilla vs. Kong, KDM estimates that Godzilla vs. Kong made somewhere around $635 million worldwide. That is a fantastic number. Of course, that definitely made back its budget and is why they're doing more. My big fear for Godzilla X Kong the New Empire is that the budget is so much higher than it was for Godzilla vs. Kong. Some reports estimate it's into the 200 millions, which I think is a little too high for a MonsterVerse movie to be able to properly make back its money. I'm gonna make a big prediction here. Hear me out. I don't know if Godzilla X Kong the New Empire is gonna do very well at the box office, and I don't really know if it's the movie's fault. I think it has a really bad release date. It's coming out in an incredibly crowded month. Dune Part 2 just came out and did enormous numbers. Then we're getting Ghostbusters, another Empire film. All of these are competing for very similar audience demographics, and then we're getting Godzilla X Kong. There's some competition shortly down the line as well with some counter programming like Civil War, so I think we're looking at a very crowded box office spring. It's kind of a Kong Skull Island situation, where Kong Skull Island came out alongside a lot of very crowded box office movies. Kong Skull Island fared pretty well though. The MonsterVerse was still fresh. It was the first King Kong movie since 2005. There was a lot of things going for that film. Godzilla X Kong, there's not as much going for it. It's Godzilla and Kong back together again after they were just back together a couple years ago. There's not really a sense of anticipation, certainly not for Godzilla, considering we just got an Oscar-nominated Godzilla film weeks ago. I just don't know if the movie's gonna do as well as it could have done if it had a better release date. So if Godzilla X Kong the New Empire underperforms, I feel like a big reason why is gonna be because it came out at a really unfortunate time. I don't know why they moved the release date, so it came out the week after Ghostbusters. That was a big mistake. I guess Warner Bros. Really wanted to bookend March, starting with Dune and ending with Godzilla. I feel like that was a mistake. There's gonna be some box office burnout would be my guess. But I guess we'll see. I'm predicting that the film's gonna do just around or a little under Godzilla vs. Kong at the box office, but I'm being a little pessimistic with that, so who knows. Hopefully it does better than King of the Monsters is all I can say. However, to KDM's point here, of course, some of the sales do come from outside the box office. The physical media, or the toys, which are definitely a powerhouse for the New Empire. Legendary East will be distributing Godzilla X Kong the New Empire in China. KDM teases that the MonsterVerse will continue theatrically post Godzilla X Kong, and that it will be a matter of just licensing and which characters they want to use and all that good stuff. Of course, Legendary can use any kaiju they want. Toho has an open offer. All they have to do is pay for them. I don't know why people are writing it off. I think it's pretty definitive at this point. We're going to get another season of Legacy of Monsters. I would be shocked shocked if we didn't get another season of Legacy of Monsters. I'd be a little shocked if we got another season of Skull Island after it's been radio silent for so long. I would be amazed if they didn't do a final MonsterVerse film. There are some rumors that Adam Wingard is in talks to do a 3-part trilogy for Godzilla and Kong, doing one final film to tie off his Godzilla Kong trilogy. I personally think that's a little rushed. I think that's a bit of a mistake. I think that we should wait a couple solo films later to do that big send-off with the two of them back together. I feel like if they do one final Godzilla Kong together movie, in a way, I do think that is going to end the MonsterVerse, either because it sinks it, because they've gone too far into the silly aspects or whatever, or because it'll just burn people out on the idea of seeing these two characters cross over, and so there really won't be a driving force to get people back into theaters for another film afterward. I definitely think they should scale back and do some solo films for a minute. KDM teases that the Iwi will return, and then followed that up by teasing stunt woman Yi Zol, whose name I butchered right there, as an Iwi warrior in Godzilla X Kong. He followed this up by announcing that Taemjir Se Lee, whose name I also just destroyed, is going to be cast as an Iwi citizen in the movie. Now, we have seen some of the Iwi in the New Empire in the trailers. These Hollow Earth natives, I believe they're supposed to be descendants of the Iwi, or some offshoot of the Iwi somehow. Personally, that really destroys the thematic value the Iwi held in Kong Skull Island, where they were supposed to represent that in the face of danger, humanity can come together against all odds and form a perfect utopia where they can work together. And by making them just people who traveled to the surface from the Hollow Earth, as the Godzilla vs. Kong novelization implied, it completely undoes the thematic weight that Jordan Vogt Roberts had given to the Iwi. But I am excited to see the Hollow Earth natives, simply because I think it could be a cool opportunity for Gia to have some good storylines. KDM then reminded us that Junkie XL is back as the composer for Godzilla X Kong the New Empire. Personally, that is my least favorite thing about the movie. I thought that Junkie's music for Godzilla vs. Kong was really underwhelming. It did grow on me over time, but for me, it just didn't land that well. But I do appreciate that it'll give us some musical continuity from film to film and make them feel a little more cohesive. In the wake of this, people like G-Man reshared this Junkie XL interview, which I hadn't seen from the time of Godzilla vs. Kong, in which Junkie says, "I find Godzilla a highly comedic character. My favorite Godzilla movie is Godzilla vs. Mothra, and so when people ask me, is it a good film, I say, well, besides the bad script, besides the horrible acting, besides the bad special effects, and besides the really bad scripted fight sequences, it's a fantastic movie." Basically just saying, no, he doesn't think it's a good movie, but he enjoys it for the goofs. But people freaked out about that. I don't really think it matters what the composer of the film thinks about the films he's working on or the characters, just as long as the music's good. I don't think there's any harm in resharing that interview. If he's working on these movies, he probably shouldn't have said that out loud, but I did see a lot of people freaking out about that. I also saw KDM coming to the defense, teasing that some of the directors of the MonsterVerse actually feel a little similar. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, I've gotten to know a couple of the MonsterVerse directors. Not terribly well, but I have gotten to know a couple of them. And by all of my personal experience, I can say that Michael Dougherty was a Godzilla fan through and through. I think he was an enormous fan of the Showa era and the early days of Godzilla, and then was probably not as big into the rest of Godzilla's filmography, but he definitely respected a lot of it and paid a lot of tribute to it in King of the Monsters, and I think the final product speaks for itself. Gareth Edwards, I know for a fact, is an enormous Godzilla fan, with a dedicated lifelong history of being a Godzilla fan. Jordan Vogt Roberts was not a Godzilla fan, but he was a dedicated Kong fan who truly loved the original King Kong movie and really respected what Peter Jackson did with his film. So I think very well he could be speaking about Jordan Vogt Roberts in that quote. I also think a little bit he could be referring to Adam Wingard, just because Wingard's taste in Godzilla films seems to skew towards the very silly, which are also the lower quality films. So maybe Wingard feels a little similar, but I ultimately don't think Wingard has done anything outright disrespectful to the character, like many overly protective fans have said. At the end of the day, I don't think it really matters what the directors feel about the films, just as long as they're making decent movies. I personally think all the MonsterVerse films so far have been decent movies, and while there's things I would definitely change about some of them, I also really respect what has been done with them. Mercy Cornwall joins the cast for Godzilla X Kong the New Empire. I have no idea what she's going to be doing in it. And then KDM gave us some updates on that school filming that was done for Godzilla X Kong, stating that there are lots of kids, teens around 12 to 15 as students. This is a K-12 school on a Monarch base. Obviously, this is where Gia goes to school and where she has her little visions in the trailer. They shot at Southport School in the Gold Coast for 3 to 4 days, so it's not going to be the biggest set piece. We will spend some time at that school in this movie. Godzilla X Kong the New Empire, despite just wrapping filming, went back for additional shooting in Hawaii, using photo doubles of the actors. So nothing too big, nothing with faces, probably just action sequences and visual effects references were being filmed. Sometimes photo doubles are used for things as small as hands coming in to do some sort of interaction with a prop or something. Godzilla X Kong wrapped 3 days later and shooting was finished, so it clearly wasn't the biggest deal. KDM then teased that rewrites were happening during Godzilla X Kong's filming, but they were much smaller this time and for the better than what happened with Godzilla vs. Kong, which went under massive structural and plot changes. For this one, it seems like they were making changes and evolutions along the way. Now, I don't want to give too much away away here, but I do know a little bit. KDM teased that one of the changes is rather large. I believe, and I won't say what's going on, but many of you know what I'm going to be referring to here. There was a scripted thing in the movie that they removed from the script and replaced with a different thing due to budgetary concerns, but then upon test screenings, people went, we would rather that this thing was a different thing. And they went, oh, the different thing people are wanting is the thing we originally had scripted. And so then they switched it back to the original thing, and that's where we're headed for the future. Was that vague enough, but also enough of a hint to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, or are you totally lost? I don't know. KDM then posted this BTS green screen photo. I believe this is probably during a news report, as you can see a desk and somebody in a suit sitting there, probably during a news report scene in the movie. We then have this BTS photo of Adam Wingard looking through whatever that is. I know what these devices are used for, I just don't know what they're called. Basically, it's a way for him to just look through this essentially camera lens and swap to what lens he'd like to use for the shot without actually having to get his hands on a camera. And it seems like he's in the costume warehouse when doing this, so I don't think they're actually planning to shoot in this costume warehouse. I think this is just a little BTS photo. There is a BTS photo dump. I'm gonna link it in the description below, but I'm not gonna show off the photos in this video just because I like to err on the side of caution with this stuff. But the photos show cameras outdoors, outdoor filming. It's all very beautiful locations, very green. It looks very pretty. We see some Origins slides, some property of Origins, which was the working title for this film. There's a camera that has actually Godzilla 2000 pasted on the side, which I think is interesting, given the fact that Godzilla's new design looks very similar to the Godzilla 2000 design. Then there's some shots of a helicopter flying in, picking up something large and then flying away with it. I have no idea what that's going to be used for, but this was all, I believe, part of the initial set of additional filming that they did, which is mostly just exteriors, landscapes, and that kind of stuff. And that will do it for this one, guys. That is all of our updates from January of 2023. Next time we'll jump on into February. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons that I'm able to continue to make videos like this for you guys in the first place. The support on the Patreon really goes a long way. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.